What's up everybody, Brad Cohen, Harmon Realty here in Harrisonburg. Back another real estate advice video. Let's get to part 2 of buying student housing in Harrisonburg. First, a quick recap of part 1. Student housing is a great potential opportunity for real estate investing, especially in Harrisonburg because of the 3 universities we have in the area. It looks great on paper with the cash flow opportunities being able to rent door by door, but you want to make sure you've got plenty of reserve built up for the potential maintenance and upkeep because students are known to be a little bit difficult on properties, a little bit rough on properties. So, getting into part 2, which focuses on the specific nuances of what you need to know about Harrisonburg and some of the regulations here and things you need to be thinking about if you're thinking about putting money here. It's tricky to buy student housing in Harrisonburg, but there are options. Most of the student housing in Harrisonburg is corporately owned, so unless you're sitting on millions of dollars or are doing commercial financing at a very, very large level, there's a lot less options than you would think. Most of these large apartment complexes are not independently owned, but are owned by corporate entities that you can't buy in those areas. There's only a select few options in communities where an individual investor could buy a townhouse or a handful of townhouses or condos. A couple of those communities are Hunters Ridge, Bradley Drive Camden Townhomes, Pheasant Run, Fox Hills, or Campus View condos. And that's what I would classify as traditional student housing. Those were communities that were built up and targeted towards students. There are options, however, to also buy in what I would call non-traditional student neighborhoods. What happens a lot there is somebody might buy just a townhouse in a residential community and then rent it to 2 or maybe 3 students, depending on the residential restrictions in that neighborhood. Bear in mind, with all the competition and corporate money going into it, advertising and fighting for students can be competitive. So a big factor that can kill your investment from a student housing standpoint is if you go into vacancy. So make sure that you have a very good grip on your vacancy rates. Something else that's really important and specific to consider in Harrisonburg are the city zoning restrictions and potential neighborhood restrictions as it pertains to the number of unrelated people that can live together. I get calls all the time from people who are just like, oh, I'm just gonna buy a house near campus and I'm gonna rent it to 4 students and it's gonna be great. Unfortunately, the city's zoning restrictions and most neighborhoods have restrictions in place that only 2 unrelated people can live together. Now, you want to check with the city and get what the specific zoning is for a specific property as you're considering that. Give me a call if you have a question about a specific property and we can check with the city. But bear in mind that the majority of these neighborhoods have those zoning or covenants in place to make sure that students stay in what we would call traditional student housing neighborhoods. Does that really matter? Yes. Quick anecdote, I had a conversation with an investor recently who owned a house in a residential neighborhood near JMU. He was renting it to 4 students and he was reported to the city because it was non-conforming with the zoning. The city came in, did an inspection, and he had to kick out 2 of his students who had leases because the city said that it was non-conforming and it's not allowed for him to be renting it to students. Please do not try to fly under the radar with it. Definitely check and make sure that what you're trying to do with any student housing investment is conforming. There is a lot of history as to why that's important and why there's some animosity in some neighborhoods right around JMU, for example, Old Town. But what we need to know is if you are going to invest a large chunk of money into student housing, that what you're going to be doing is on the up and up and you're not going to run into any trouble with it. The bottom line is if you are thinking about buying student housing in Harrisonburg, make sure you're talking to somebody who's really in tune with the local nuances and the restrictions in this area so you're getting good quality advice and you can make sure that this is going to be a successful investment for you. By the way, did you know that I started my career in student housing? I worked for a corporate company doing leasing and marketing, so I know a lot about what students are looking for and how to compete with those companies. In addition, I sold 900 Ridge condos my first year when I was selling real estate. I graduated from JMU. I'm still very in touch with what people are looking for in the student housing market and all of those little nuances that you need to be aware of. So that concludes my two-part series on student housing in Harrisonburg. If you have questions about buying property around JMU, whether you are an alum or an investor from out of town or a parent of a JMU student coming into the area thinking about buying, please feel free to give me a call. I'm happy to have these conversations, more specifically talk about any specific properties and options that may be available for you. Thanks so much for watching, and we will be back soon with another real estate video. Thanks so much.